Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce. The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Carlson Printing for all your printing needs. 508-548-7303 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303. Our email address is carlsonprinting@aol.com. Carlson Printing for all your printing needs.
Hosting services for fctv.org are provided by MegaNet Communications. MegaNet offers a wide array of internet services including Mega Backup Cloud Service, server co-location, T1, fiber, Metro Ethernet, as well as telephone services such as hosted PBX and digital voice. Their number one goal is to keep your communications network up and running and allow you to focus on growing your business. 877-634-2638 or meganet.net.
Everyone, this is the Board of Selectmen meeting for December 17, 2018. We're starting in the Selectmen's meeting room. We also have folks in the water room listening to the meeting by video. If anyone here wishes a seat, you get tired of standing, or you just want some more room, please know that there are seats available in that space for you. First, we will...
Is it possible to bring the mic a little closer?
Sure. There we go. First item is a Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing will be if there is anyone who is recording by video or audio, would you please raise your hand and let me know? No one? The reason I ask is that if folks are recording other than FCTV, I just ask that they would notify us and do it from the seat so that they're not, getting in folks' personal space and walking, sort of chasing folks. So thank you for that. Seeing none, the first item on the agenda is a proclamation honoring Karen Ronaldo.
Be happy to.
If I have it, I will. Go right ahead. Oh, go ahead, Sam.
Well, this is truly a pleasure. This proclamation reads, whereas Karen Ronaldo moved to Falmouth with her family at the age of 18 and adopted Falmouth as her hometown. Since her youngest days, Karen has always aspired to be an artist. And whereas Karen Ronaldo's many contributions to the quality of life in Falmouth represent a remarkable and treasured legacy extending over 50 years, including, but in no way limited to the following. In celebration of America's 1976 bicentennial, Karen painted an extensive multi-panel mural of Falmouth's history that lines the main hallway of Town Hall. Karen created an original poster for Falmouth's tricentennial, which is housed in the Historical Society archives. Her original painting of the 1779 Battle of Falmouth, reenactment in 1979, hangs in the Selectmen's meeting room at Town Hall. Right over here. Karen created a heritage map of Falmouth Village for the Falmouth Preservation Alliance as part of a heritage map series, a copy of which hangs inside the entry to Town Hall. The original Remembrance, her painting of the traveling Vietnam Wall, which visited Falmouth in 2000, hangs in Falmouth's Veteran Services office. Karen was engaged to paint the 14 stations of the cross that line the walls of St. Patrick's Church in downtown Falmouth. She created the Catherine Lee Bates Memorial mural that hangs in the Falmouth Museums on the Green, commemorating the author of America the Beautiful. Karen has designed and created a logo for FCTV, numerous Falmouth Road Race annual posters, 30 years of Falmouth Fireworks t-shirts, and multiple covers for the annual Chamber of Commerce Holidays by the Sea event. Samples of Karen's poems, paintings, and photographs were presented to the Emperor of Japan and the Queen of England upon their visits to Falmouth in 1976. Excuse me.
A lot of dates. It's okay.
That would have been something to see. 1976. Karen continues to serve on the boards of several local organizations, contributing time and talent to their work to enhance the quality of life in Falmouth. Whereas Karen Ronaldo's tireless energy, enthusiasm, and generous contributions to the Falmouth community are recognized and appreciated by fellow residents, including recognition by the Falmouth Historical Society as a Heritage Award honoree in 2015. And whereas Karen Ronaldo's paintings, photographs, and poetry reflect an engaging and joyous spirit and optimism, which is representative of all that is best in the town of Falmouth. Therefore, with this proclamation, we recognize and thank Karen for who she is, all that she has accomplished, and the inspiring work that she continues to do as a true ambassador of the Falmouth community. In witness thereof, we, Susan L. Moran, Megan English Braga, Doug Jones, Samuel H. Patterson, and Douglas C. Brown, have hereunto set our hand and caused the great seal of the town of Falmouth to be affixed on this 17th day of December 2018.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations and thank you, Karen.
To Town Manager Julian Suso, Madam Chairman, and the Board of Directors, the Board of Selectmen. I'm about to lose my voice, but I have enough voice to tell you it's been a very emotional time preparing a 50-year retrospective, because it really shows the urgency that went into the last 50 years. And realistically, going forward, maybe 20, and they will have even greater urgency. And if you look up the definition of success by famous people, everyone from Steve Jobs to Johnny Carson and everyone in between, they say there's a common denominator, that a person has to be passionate, love what you do, and not do it for the money. That would truly typify me. So going forward, there's much more work to be done, many more hearts to be touched, and just enjoying being a part of Falmouth, which is just the best community. We have the best people. We live in a historic element that just, we are walking in the footsteps of history every day. And in the words of a very great lady, never was there a lovelier town than our Falmouth by the sea. That truly typifies where we live. Catherine Lee Bates. Thank you all very much.
Unbelievable. Feels like there's a rock star in our midst. Thank you. Next, we have more rock stars. Eagle Scout proclamation for Zane Otter from Troop 38. Zane, are you here?
He's not here tonight.
All right, do you want to
Sure.
read it or wait
there a
till
better
he can
date?
come?
He's at school, on his way back home from school, and his court of honors, you won't have another meeting before.
We'll go
Okay,
ahead.
then we'll go for it.
Thank you.
Shall I read it?
Please.
Sure. Whereas Zane Otter of Boy Scout Troop 38 has successfully completed qualifications for the rank of Eagle Scout, a rigorous and demanding process that teaches patience, perseverance, and teamwork, and requires strong goal setting. And Zane Otter met these challenges with aplomb and shall be recognized as an outstanding representative of his family, his troop, and Falmouth. And whereas the Boy Scouts of America, long acknowledged for building fine citizens, calls for a special court of honor to award its highest symbol of achievement to those who complete this rank, and Zane Otter is now an Eagle Scout with all its rank and privilege. Now therefore, we, Susan L. Moran, Megan English Braga, Doug Jones, Samuel H. Patterson, and Douglas C. Brown, as Selectmen of the Town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim Saturday, January 5th, 2019, as Zane Otter Day throughout Falmouth.
Second?
Aye. Excellent. Next, we have Eagle Scout proclamation for Dominic Italian, Troop 38.
You're the
Go right
proclamation
ahead.
guy tonight.
Go, all right, you want to go, keep on going, all right. Whereas Dominic Italian of Boy Scout Troop 38 has successfully completed the qualifications for the rank of Eagle Scout, a rigorous and demanding process that teaches patience, perseverance, and teamwork, and requires strong goal setting. And Dominic Italian met these challenges with aplomb and shall be recognized as an outstanding representative of his family, his troop, and Falmouth. And whereas the Boy Scouts of America, long acknowledged for building fine citizens, calls for a special court of honor to award its highest symbol of achievement to those who complete this rank. And Dominic Italian is now an Eagle Scout with all its rank and privileges. Now therefore, we, Susan L. Moran, Megan English Braga, Doug Jones, Samuel H. Patterson, and Douglas C. Brown, as Selectmen of the Town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim Saturday, January 12th, 2019, as Dominic Italian Day throughout Falmouth.
Second?
Mr. Italian, step up, please tell us about your project.
So I worked with Mr. Rasman from the Roquoit National Research Reserve, and we went to Dead Neck Trail of South Cape Beach in Mashpee, and we helped replace the walkway at the trail by replacing these wooden 4x4s, the ones that weren't dug in correctly into the ground, and a lot of the wire was rusted and no good, so we replaced all that, cleaned up the trail, and now it's all good and it helps people stay off the environment and on the trail.
And every time you come to Falmouth, you can point out that that's something you did that will last for a very long time. Any questions?
No, that's great. I think we have to vote it, though. Do we have to still vote it?
We'll vote right now. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Enjoy your
Means a lot.
celebration.
Recognition, Ms. Braga.
Just, we're a little bit less than a week, or maybe it's a week, I don't know, I haven't been keeping track, but we're pretty close to Christmas. And I just want to remind folks that there are, for those who celebrate Christmas, there are a lot of families in our community who are in need, and there are a lot of really wonderful organizations who are connecting people who have time or resources to give with families that are in need. It can take as little as, a $10 or $15 toy, or, some food, some type of food, a ham or a turkey, to really make the difference for a family, and particularly for a child over this holiday season. The Falmouth Service Center, Wings for Families, Wings for Falmouth Families. These are all organizations. You just reach out to them. They'll be really clear in what they're looking for. You don't even have to use any imagination if you don't want to. They'll tell you what they really need. But this is the type of community outreach that's really important. Every child, every family should have something to celebrate over this holiday season. So I just encourage you, if you haven't done it yet, and I know so many have already, but to just reach out and find out ways that we can connect with our families and our neighbors here in this community who are struggling during this time of year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have announcements. Doug?
And if you're bored on Wednesday, you can come down to the Service Center and help us set up the tables with the toys with all the Service Center elves.
Perfect.
Great little thing to do.
Any other announcements? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is public comment. It's a 2-minute opportunity for anyone in the audience to speak about something that's not on the agenda. Is there anyone here for public comment? Mr. Halen.
Good evening, everyone. Michael Halen, Cliffwood Lane, Falmouth, Mass. I hope that no matter what happens tonight, everyone in this room is heard, and we don't have a repeat of past meetings where they were illegally adjourned. That's my first hope. My second public comment is a question about the charter. According to the charter, one of Mr. Souzo's job titles is to inform the Board of Selectmen on general problems, administrative actions, and submit some periodic reports to the board. Now, according to the newspaper article, Chair Moran was unaware of what is happening.
Mike, we have an agenda item.
No, this is about communications, not about the agenda item.
It's about the agenda. I'm going to stop you. We'll move on.
So after I just said don't let
Mike?
people not speak, you're going to do that to me.
Someone else's turn. Anyone else?
Anybody want to read what I wrote? Because she won't let me read it.
You can
Can I
speak when
finish?
it's on the agenda, Mike. That's an agenda
This
item.
is not. This is a question about
Mike,
the
I've
job
asked you to
performance.
stop. You can speak at the agenda item. Next, we have summary of actions.
Wow.
License, application for bowling alley, billiard table, and common victualler license, Trade Center Bowl, 89 Spring Bars Road.
I move approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did you need to speak to it?
Thank you very much.
Thanks for showing up.
Yep,
Yeah,
pick up
thank you
the
for the
paperwork in the
information you provided.
Main office.
I guess the one thing I do want to point out, at least the victual license, that what we have is valid just until December 31st of this year.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
See ya.
So you know. Okay.
All right.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is a vote to affirm the appointment of Frank Duffy as town council. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the board is well aware, Town Council Frank Duffy has served us with distinction for multiple years, for which we're very gratified and grateful for his professionalism and legal guidance, which we rely on continuously. Frank serves at a 3-year term, which would be expiring at the end of this calendar year, and has requested consideration for a successor 3-year term, which I'm happy to recommend and ask for the affirmation of the Board of Selectmen as well.
Mr. Duffy is obviously here. If anyone from the board would like to ask any questions or have any discussion, or if you'd like me to have Frank step up, let me know. Sam?
I move that we endorse this appointment and extend my gratitude for his willingness to serve us.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Next, we have a vote to
Thank you.
approve.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Frank is, I don't see
Right there, second. Oh. Vote to approve Eversource petition to install 2 4-inch conduits at 15 Hinckley Road, east of Juniper Point Road.
I move approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have a motion and vote regarding the November 2018 town meeting petition, Article 12. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We received an inquiry from Town Clerk Michael Palmer regarding this petition, Article 12, and had a discussion also with Town Council Frank Duffy. And I would ask Frank if he might be willing to step up and give us a little guidance. I think at Frank's suggestion that this action by the Board of Selectmen is not mandatory, but would certainly be warranted if the board so desires. Frank, did you want to comment on that? Elaborate any further?
Thank you. If you'd step right up.
Frank Duffy, Town Council. I wasn't aware that I was going to be asked to comment on this, but is this the article that Mr. Walker brought?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
Well,
Yep.
that was, I
Net
believe,
metering.
yes, I believe the article read that he urged you to urge the state legislature to take some action. So I think, in my view anyways, it's appropriate to respond to the town meeting vote by having the Board of Selectmen submit this to the legislature. And I drafted a letter to the governor, to the Speaker of the House, to the President of the Senate, and our local representatives for appropriate action in the legislature.
The only comment I'd make on this is advisory articles from town meeting we are not required to do so. So I think if we are interested in doing so, as opposed to just rubber stamping it, is actually something we decide whether that is appropriate or not. I would move that I would support that we send this as a, showing the vote of town meeting.
I would second.
And just to that point before we do the vote, I think the way that, I like the way that you presented it, whereas you just state that we are urging them to give it due consideration, and then you present the actual article. So it's just very clear what town meeting actually passed. So the desire and the vote of town meeting is fully presented to the legislature, so.
Right.
I think that's helpful.
And a nice result of a petitioner's article. Yes. So, Doug?
I'm just going to say, some people say that these type things don't belong in town meeting, and sometimes they don't. But I think this one is very useful and helpful, and I'm glad we did it.
Absolutely. And thanks to the petitioner on that.
Okay, if we're going to bring up that, actually, that's where I would disagree. I don't think this is appropriate, but since town meeting voted for it, I really think that messages to the to the state legislature are not appropriate to come to town meeting and then be pushed forward by us. But since town meeting did vote in favor of it, that's the reason I made the motion.
Okay.
But I actually don't think town meeting is the place for us to be debating state law. That's what the state legislature is about, not our town meeting. Ours is to debate our bylaws and our laws and charter review.
Okay.
And so the vote to sign the letter,
We had a second, and then we just
and
needed
so
a
all
vote.
those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have vote whether to approve the Historical Commission's application for CPC funding of Phase 3 of the Historic Survey Project. Is there anyone here from Historic? Mr. Sousa, do you want to just give a quick outline?
Well, I can give you my best understanding. I thought we were going to have a representative
I did
here
too.
this evening, so,
Great.
okay, if
That'd
it'd
be
be
great. Yeah,
agreeable,
Tom,
Madam
if you
Chair.
don't mind. Thank you.
Town Planner Tom Bott.
They did give us a presentation recently.
A while
which
ago.
included
It's
it.
just a further phase. Yep.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I'm Tom Bottom, the town planner here in Kingston, Mass.
Formerly from Kingston.
And I always yell at them when they say San Diego Chargers on TV. So forgive me, I've been reading a lot of stuff today.
That's all
In
right.
any event, we did propose some additional survey work through a community preservation committee to expand the inventory of historic buildings in the town. It found favor, and we're looking forward to bring on a consultant moving forward with the additional survey work.
Great.
Great. I would just say that I think we've already, CPC and the town has already endorsed and funded the first couple of phases. I think it'll be a valuable tool for the town once it's done. And so I think we're already we're 2/3 of the way there. We need to finish it. So I would move approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Falmouth.
Great.
I would suggest we move to the licenses for the next 8 minutes.
That's what I was thinking, too. Do you want to start the reading?
Sure.
I don't mind doing it. if you
All
guys
right,
wanna do
so we're going to go to the, move ahead because we have a hearing coming up at 7:30. We're going to move to the item below number 7 on business on the agenda. Number 7 is approved 2019 annual license renewals.
For all alcohol restaurants, the 99 Restaurant, Anchor Ale House, Cape Cod Country Club, Grill 500, the Hong Kong Restaurant, Jack's Restaurant and Bar, Sopranos Casino by the Sea, and the Cape Club.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. For the All Alcohol Club, Ambits Post 70.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All Alcohol Inn Holder, the Falmouth Inn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. All Alcohol Package Store, Family Foods, John's Liquor Store, Murphy's Package Store, and West Falmouth Market.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wine and Malt Restaurant, Falmouth Cinema Pub, Papagino's, and Ryan's Family Amusements.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And Wine and Malt Package Store, Windfall Market.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Common Victualler, Burrito Loco, Taste of Two Chefs, Falmouth Hospital Cafeteria, Friendly's Ice Cream, Molly's Tea Room, Dana's Kitchen, Primetime House of Pizza at 338 East Falmouth Highway, Primetime House of Pizza at 286 Old Main Road, Subway number 29742 at 236 Ticket Highway, Subway K&L Enterprise at 137 T-Ticket Highway, Supreme Pizza, Talk of the Town Diner.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Motor Vehicle Class 2, Battles Used Car and Trucks, Sid's Auto Brokers, Costa Auto Body Company, Executive Auto, Falmouth Auto Center, Falmouth Auto Sales, Falmouth Auto Works, Petro Brothers, Seaside Auto Sales.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And Vehicle for Hire, Never Rest Limo Van Services, and Falmouth Taxi.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yep, let's go to the minutes of meeting for public session, December 10, 2018.
I didn't have any changes.
I didn't either. So I would, unless anyone has any changes, I would move approval.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's too fast. Are the folks here for the 7:30 wetland hearing, the 300 committee, construction of elevated boardwalk, walking trails, bog bridges, and informational kiosks to improve public access to two ponds, conservation area, body of water, affected Jones Road and Cedar Swamp?
Madam Chair,
Are folks here? Hello.
I'm involved in this project, so I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay.
I'm in a butter, so I guess I should be
Uh-oh.
recusing.
Okay.
Do we need 4 votes?
Well,
So out of necessity, can't we, one of them
what
not
do you
recuse
think? I think
themselves?
the
by
abutter is
necessity?
probably less of a conflict than the guy building it.
Well, I'm not an immediate abutter.
But he's
but I am
building it.
within 300 feet.
I'll be like right on it.
I don't know, Frank.
Out of necessity, we could have an exception, I believe. Frank, would you
Can you weigh
opine
in?
on that? Oh, thank you. Save me again.
Yes, this is probably the first time I've seen it invoked in Falmouth, but there is a rule of necessity under the conflict of interest law, which says if you cannot participate because of a conflict of interest, but it reduces the board below the necessary quorum, then you can participate, and I think that's what's happened here tonight. So you need 4 out of 5 for this, it's a special permit.
Do we have to vote on that, or do we just?
No.
No, okay.
It's fine.
Thank you.
Does Sam need to disclose at least what the conflict is so that we, so,
Yep, happy to do that. I live within 300 feet of this project, and so that's how I fall into this category. I don't think I'm actually predisposed one way or the other on it. I don't think it actually is going to affect my property value, so I suspect that I'm not really a biased member of the board.
just like we're going to be doing later this evening, could we also vote an exemption from the conflict of interest law, as we are going to be able to do with, or hope to do with our
Route
special
28.
Route 28 committee?
No, that's a little different procedure, and it applies to a different set of facts. That's based upon a written application, which you don't have here tonight, so
Okay.
no, the answer's no.
Nice thought, though. All right, I'm going to read the hearing notice. The public hearing notice is as follows. The Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under Section 240-77, Wetland Regulations of the zoning bylaws of the Town of Falmouth on Monday, December 17, 2018, at 7:30 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on the application of the 300 Committee for permission to construct an elevated boardwalk, walking trails, the installation of bog bridges, and an informational kiosk to improve public access to the 14-acre Two Ponds Conservation Area located at 0 Gifford Street, Falmouth, Mass. Body of water affected is Jones Road, Jones Pond, and Cedar Swamp. Interested parties may review the file on this hearing at the Selectman's office per order of the Board of Selectmen. Publication dates, Friday, November 30, 2018, and Friday, December 7, 2018, in the Falmouth Enterprise copy to abutters. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Jessica Rittenauer. I'm the Executive Director of 300 Committee Land Trust, and Michael McGrath is with me this evening from Holmes and McGrath. He's our project engineer. And as Doug Brown pointed out before he left the hearing room, he is the general contractor for this project. I'm going to begin just by sharing a few words about the Two Ponds property, describing what the 300 Committee is proposing to do and why we're proposing it, and then Mike will complete the presentation with the engineering plan description and really describing how we propose to achieve this.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you. The Two Ponds Conservation Area is almost 15 acres, 14.75 acres. It's situated next to Atria Woodbriar. I don't know if I can get this. I don't know if you can see the red dot on there. Oh, good idea. Okay. So, here we go. Atria Woodbriar, the large facility. When that facility was under construction, the development permitting required a set-aside of open space. So that's how the Two Ponds Conservation Area came to be. The 300 Committee was the recipient of this land gift from Atria Woodbriar. It's a significant open space parcel because of the natural features. It has a lovely Atlantic white cedar swamp, but as you can see, it's also very close to the center of town. So nice proximity to schools, many businesses and residences in this area. When the 300 Committee acquired the property, it was certainly permanently protected with a conservation restriction. Very simple trail system had been installed by Atria before the land gift. The existing trail is almost 400 feet long, so it does provide some access into the property. It's wheelchair accessible, so residents of Atria and folks visiting in wheelchairs can get out to a viewing area looking out over the two ponds. We're looking out over Saul's Pond and Jones Pond here, but the access, I would say, is quite limited. So the goal of this project that the 300 Committee is pursuing is really to open up access. We want to enhance and expand the handicap accessibility for certain by establishing an additional trail that's 400 feet long and a boardwalk that's 360 feet long. So adding a significant amount of handicap accessibility, and there will be a wetland loop trail as well. So this image here gives you that same aerial overview. All of the trails highlighted in yellow are handicap accessible, and the trail system in blue is more of a rugged wetland loop for through hikers. There will also be an educational panel highlighting the cedar swamp. I've got a brief part of the project is to educate the public as to why this conservation land is significant. So more and more we're working to create these displays of information of what is unique about a cedar swamp and why this property is special. So there is an educational component as well. Before I hand it over to Mike, I just want to share the project is replacing boardwalk. So many of the folks in this room will remember this as the Atria Woodbriar 9-hole golf course. And where the boardwalks will be placed is in the same location. I'm not sure which hole number this was on the course, but there were boardwalks spanning this stretch of Jones Pond here.
The 8th.
What was that?
It was the 8th.
Great. And then back here in this stretch. So we're utilizing the same footprints, but the difference this time around is we're using technoposts, which are an environmentally sensitive approach for the boardwalk footings. Those were used at T-Ticket Park. When we presented to Concom, that was a very important factor, that we're minimizing disturbance in this wetland environment. We're also proposing the use of light penetration decking as opposed to typical boardwalk planks. And again, in the cedar swamp and the wetland environment, the light penetration decking allows vegetation to continue to thrive in the wetland area. So those were two choices that the 300 committee made in order to make a more environmentally sensitive public access project. It's entirely privately funded through donations and grants, and we're still actively fundraising, hoping to complete permitting in the weeks ahead and be able to construct between the January and March timeframe. I'm going to hand over to Mike McGrath so he can share with you the details of how we propose to do this.
Thank you. Impressive that that's entirely privately funded.
It's a great community of support.
Falmouth. Welcome, Mike.
Good evening. I'd like to pass out to the board
Please.
individual copies.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Give it to Doug later.
My name is Michael McGrinch from Holmes & McGrath. Michael McGrath. In December, I go by McGrinch.
Okay.
We drew the plans for the two basically structures that cross the cedar swamp. And what I've done is I have colored up the plans I've given the board of selectmen, reduced copies of this because sometimes it's hard for them to see what I've colored. But the plan consists of three sheets. Sheet 2 describes the construction details of the boardwalk that's immediately parallel to Jones Road, and sheet 3 is a detail of the smaller crossing. And of course, they're out of order. This is Jones Pond, and then there's an Atlantic cedar swamp. And if you've been to the site, it's this sidewalk, this access way there's a portion that's been cleared, and then it's staked out to go across the cedar swamp. There's been an extraordinary amount of rain in the last quarter, so this cedar swamp is flooded higher than it's been in the past. But the proposed construction is shown in a detail here, and what there is the walkway is always higher than the wetland. There are standards under the Wetlands Act, and this meets the standards of clearance underneath the decking. The decking, as described, does allow light penetration. The walkway comes across, goes parallel. There's a proposed scenic outlook that's 5 foot by 8 foot that allows someone in a wheelchair to come up and actually turn around and go back. And then it comes down, and then there's an like an L corner here where it goes across a projection of the cedar swamp. The cedar swamp is colored in the lime, and the proposed work is colored in orange. So that's on sheet 2. That's the major structure. And then there's a smaller structure in footprint that goes across a much drier wetland. This wetland is an arm of the cedar swamp. You can walk across this today. where the other one you need waiters. This is it's called a bog bridge layout, where a wetland is land that is saturated, and there are sometimes the symptoms of the soil that cause it a wetland are actually certain soil types within a 6 or 8 inches of the surface. This is a real wetland, but to a layman, it would appear to be a wetland now, but in the dry season, it doesn't appear to be a wetland. But in any case, what we do here is we lay basically planks and on the ground surface, and then we lay planks on top of it, so you actually walk on top of the surface. So basically, under the zoning bylaw, if anybody alters a wetland, they have to come before the Board of Selectmen to get a special permit. The tradition of the board is that you get the order of conditions from the Falmouth Conservation Commission before we come to you. And the order of conditions has been issued and it's been recorded, and I know my office filed a copy. If you need more, I'd be happy to submit a copy if you need one.
We have it.
So I'm here to answer any engineering questions you're concerned about this.
I have two.
Please.
Just to make sure I understand, between sheet 2 and sheet 3, there is a little staircase that goes down to the path?
Yes.
And so really, wheelchairs beyond the L aren't going to be recommended?
Right. That's right.
But you're saying that L is a pretty good place if someone wanted to get the wheelchair there and then turn around and say, heading back? Either the lookout point or the L is
They actually, I had a friend in a wheelchair, and he used to turn around in this area. It was difficult, but he could turn around. But there's handicap access here, and basically the only bar is that set of stairs.
And then that, after it goes across the ground level path or structure, it goes back to being a regular walkway, which wouldn't be.
Right, it's
Which
just
wouldn't be
a
handicapped
path
anyway. Right.
where handicap is supposed to have a hard surface, and it's gonna be like a traditional wooded path like all the paths out at Highfield. BB Woods.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none? Is there anyone from the public who wants to speak in favor of this project? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public who wants to speak against this project? Seeing none.
I would move we close the hearing.
Second?
All those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
What would the board like to do?
I would, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Megan.
I was just going to say I would move approval. I think it's a great project. I hope that it's something that is advertised to the community and to the schools, to be able to have access to a white cedar swamp close to home. I know kids do that when they go to the seashore, so I hope that some outreach, I know the 300 Committee does it all the time, but it's a great resource.
And wasn't part of the atria requirement that the parking lot they have that's over in the area of this is available for public access?
Correct, good point.
Yes, there are 4 marked parking spaces in the atria lot for this, and there will be a sign going up on Gifford Street. We need the sign permit still and possibly a license, but we do want it clearly marked on Gifford Street that the Two Ponds Conservation Area access is there.
And is the handicapped accessible parking close enough to the trail?
Yes.
Great. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions by the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Terrific work.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Good luck with your contractor.
Thank you.
Right.
By the way, I just want to say the Village Green looks wonderful. Thank you, Town of Falmouth.
All right, we're now going to go back to the information presentation business 745 item by the AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod, including needle exchange program. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about that agenda item as folks are moving about. If there are seats, please come and take them. We're going to have
a couple of folks give some information. The point of this agenda item is that the Board of Selectmen noticed there were a lot of questions in the community and wanted to give an opportunity for some of those, some information to be put forth. I understand there are going to be further efforts at community outreach, and I think we'll hear more about that as part of the presentation. We're going to have the town council speak about the parameters of the project in terms of the Board of Selectmen's and the Board of Health's opportunity to comment on that. We're then going to go to opportunity for the Board of Health to speak, and then for the AIDS group to make a statement about what they are intending to do. Those are all going to go about 3 minutes. We're then going to have about 10 minutes of public comment. So we're going to have, no, I'm not, you're not recognized. You're not recognized.
Well, neither was Mr. Halen when he was sitting up here trying to address an issue which he didn't.
Ma'am, I hope we don't have a repeat and have to stop this meeting. All right, then no interruptions unless you're recognized. I can't recognize you because I'm in the middle of telling you the rules. The rule is going. What does the board want to do? Do you want to start this or not?
Yeah, the goal here tonight, I don't mean to step on your toes,
No,
but
it's
the
not
goal is
stepping.
this is something that we're going to hear from town council about what the role of the Board of Selectmen. We're really doing this to hold an opportunity for there to be public comment. This isn't something that would come before us for a vote. So what we're trying to do is have.
Please don't speak over Ms. Braga.
Just trying to explain to you that, and what Chairman Moran was saying is, we're going to hear from the Board of Health, hear from this program, and then hear from the public. The whole, no, because I think people have a lot of questions about what the program is, so it makes more sense to hear, so that then you can direct your questions back to either the Board of Health or to the program, so that you actually we can make good use of the time here, and people can ask. We're gonna have 10 minutes of public comment.
If you are not recognized,
probably
do
in that whole 10
not
minutes.
speak. You can't respond because they're
The
not
10-minute period is what we've used for almost every single meeting for a particular topic. Well, if that's what you wanted, I hear is untrue.
Folks, if you're going to, unless you recognize, you can't speak. All right, we're going to take a recess right now. We'll be back. We will be back at 7:50. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're starting the 7:45 information presentation by AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod, including Needle Exchange Program. What we're going to be doing is having a presentation, first of all, by Town Council with respect to the role of the Board of Selectmen. Then we're going to be hearing from the Board of Health and from the AIDS group itself. After that, we want to take public comment. We have, amongst the agenda, we have listed this item as an agenda item, and we are going to take about 10 to 15 minutes of public comment because we have other items we've got to finish today as well. I want to let you know your view is important. We've gotten a lot of emails on this already. There also are other public sort of discussions that are going to be announced. The town manager has already spoken with, I believe it's Father Avila and the support group about another public session. So we'll see how that develops. For today, in order for everyone to hear the information that is out there and for everyone to hear each other, if you would please just wait till you're called upon and then go to the podium, state your name, and then you will have a limit of 2 minutes to speak so we can hear as many people as possible. Frank, please, if you would get started.
Madam Chair, Frank.
Hold on, there might be something I've forgotten.
I just would
Doug?
say, I think you should mention, obviously, we're not all going to be able to talk. If you don't get to speak, you can always follow up with an email, so don't feel like you're not going to be heard.
Thank you.
Yes, Madam Chair, Frank Duffy, Town Council. Tonight's meeting is exactly that. It is a meeting. It is not a hearing, but it is a meeting, and it's for informational purposes only. There's no application from the AIDS group, support group of Cape Cod before you tonight, so you're not here to take any official action. Also, the Board of Selectmen is not a permit granting authority for this particular project. This project is proposed in a business district under the zoning bylaw, and it has been determined that within a business district, medical clinics, business professional offices, hospitals, and sanatoriums and so forth are permitted by right, so they can come in and start operation. I would like to make sure everybody understands that they do not need a special permit from the Board of Appeals for this operation. They do not need a variance. In fact, they don't need any particular action from the Board of Appeals. They don't need any particular action from the Board of Selectmen. They have been before the Board of Health, and I think the Board of Health is here tonight, and the Board of Health can explain what they have done, because there was a vote taken by the Board of Health. But the Board of Health has no role in the siting of a needle exchange program or any clinic of the AIDS support group. This particular situation is very similar to one that occurred in Hyannis a couple of years ago and resulted in a case being presented to the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court back in 2017. It's the AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod versus the Town of Barnstable, and I understand it's the same group that is here tonight and will be representing their position. Now, in that particular case, there was a needle exchange program established in the town, in the village of Hyannis in the town of Barnstable. There were some issues that were raised, and the town of Barnstable issued a cease and desist order. The matter went to Superior Court. It eventually wound up in the Supreme Judicial Court, where they focused on two particular issues and only two particular issues. The first issue they focused on was a criminal statute, Chapter 94C, Section 27, which basically made it a criminal offense to sell needles. The Supreme Judicial Court said that based upon an amendment to the statute just prior to the case being heard, that statute does not apply to the free exchange or free needle exchange program. It only controls the sale of needles. So the free exchange of needles has basically been decriminalized, so it's not in the purview of criminal law. The second point that they raised is that the legislature had established a program for pilot programs around the state for needle exchanges. There was some confusion about how the law applied, whether it applied in all towns and so forth, but the Supreme Judicial Court said that the statute does not prohibit private needle exchange programs. But it did say, however, that the state can provide support for a program only if the local Board of Health approves, and the Board of Health can explain to you what they have done. So in the end, the conclusion of the Supreme Judicial Court was that under Chapter 94C of the General Laws and Chapter 111 of the General Laws, which is the General Public Health Statute, it does not prohibit the AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod from engaging in the distribution of hypodermic needles, and an injunction permanently enjoining the town of Barnstable from issuing a cease and desist order came out of that case. The facts this is a Supreme Judicial Court case, so it applies throughout the state, and it applies to all cases where there is similar facts. Now, I'm not sure that if there are any distinctions between the facts in Falmouth and in Barnstable, we'll certainly find out over time, but right now that is the controlling case that I find. So just in summary, there's nothing before you tonight, and you cannot decide on anything tonight, but you can certainly take the public's concerns and give it due weight. We can consider what may be done, and certainly I think the folks from the AIDS Support Group will be telling you what they're going to be doing, and you'll hear a lot of ideas, and we can vet this thing out. But that's the parameters of your...
Thank you very much, Frank. Appreciate that. Are there any questions from the board to Frank? Appreciate that.
Thank you, that's helpful.
I want to just recognize a couple pieces of correspondence that have come in already from Rabbi Lieberman. He's not able to be present tonight, but writes in favor of this program, assisting those with opioid dependency to find resources to address their addiction. Also from David Kohlmeyer, the Reverend from the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Falmouth, in support and discussing the fact that his daughter is very comfortable, feeling no danger, so that these folks can get important treatment and care. And then I also just want to read a couple of questions put forth by Amy Leonardi, the owner of Cape Cod Moms, just especially for the needle exchange program folks to maybe address after. For example, what are the qualifications of the counselors and staff? What hours and days will you be open? How do you remove medical waste? You advertise needle retrieval. What's that? So those are some of the questions we'll be looking for you to address if you can today. And next I'll hear from the chair of the Board of Health. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. I'm Diana Malloy. I'm the chair of the Board of Health, Falmouth, and I am a registered nurse, and I have a master's degree in community health. Just to give you a little background, the AIDS support group came to us a couple of times discussing the efforts that they have in trying to help with our opioid crisis and all of that here on Cape Cod. And they asked for our support with a letter of support to saying that we're supporting their program. And what their program included is what they presented to us was prevention and screening programs, overdose prevention education, health services, and substance abuse treatment. And that is what we were supporting with our vote. We took a vote of the Board of Health that we would support this program. We support many of the town's efforts, certainly with concerns with the opioid crisis and everything that's going on. It's real, it's here. I don't know about you, but in my parking lot where I work, I pick up needles with sharps containers and gloves on a fairly regular basis, and we're in the middle of town. So we've seen them everywhere. I have some colleagues that had noted that they were in the hospital parking lot. There are needles on the ground everywhere. That's very much of a concern for public health as well. We've got dirty needles that any of our children or any of our animals could get in touch with. We're preventing infection with the needle program. And the idea is that they're going to collect the dirty needles so that they aren't on the ground. So that was kind of like what we were going with. They also have an opportunity to teach, listen, and intervene with anybody that comes in to their program in their facility. So there's always that option of, you know, you try to quit the cigarettes one time, it might be the 10th time that somebody says something and you're able to take it and move forward. And that's what we're hoping will happen with the program. Maybe not 10 times, but just the idea that any opportunity to interact and intervene with people that are trying to get by. And it is a disease. All the research out there is a disease. It's hard enough seeing our friends, our neighbors, and our relatives that have died of overdoses. There have been 20 people. I have a stepdaughter that teaches first grade. Last year, she had at least 3 parents of her children that overdosed and died. So we're supporting also the Massachusetts Department of Public Health program. They are supporting and providing funding for some of this. And our goal really is prevention. I was at a meeting today about with the schools and identifying early education and trying to prevent vaping and everything that's going on out there. There's tons and tons of programs. We can't always prevent everything. We also have to be able to treat it when it does happen. We can't always prevent heart disease, so we have to treat heart disease. We need help in Falmouth. We need more services. We need mental health services, and we need those to help with addictions. Again, I just want to reiterate that the vote that was taken on November 19th was to support the program for the AIDS support group. I was here working in healthcare, matter of fact, at Falmouth Hospital in 1985 when we had one of our first AIDS patients. People were panicked. There's a lot of fear attached to it. But what we found out is how this is transmitted. And one of the ways that it is transmitted is through dirty needles. So I understand the fear and concern and emotion related to all this, but we're also trying to protect and save lives here in Falmouth. And all of us, somebody's touched all of us somewhere along the way. So how can we support that and continue that effort? Anything else,
you.
Madam Chair?
Great job. Any questions from members of the board?
No.
Not for her.
Thank you. Next.
And I could just mention that as a result of the meetings, we'd be glad to get it on our agenda. It did not make it to our agenda for this evening, but I think most of the people that came probably came up here. So we'd be glad to add it onto an agenda or have a separate meeting if necessary after these.
That would be great. That'd be another opportunity. Thank you very much. So folks, look for that on the agenda, and we'll ask that that be publicized on the town website very visibly. Thank you. The support group, welcome. Please introduce yourselves. You have about 3 minutes to discuss some of the topics that have been raised.
Wonderful, thank you. Hello, I'm Katie Rakonda.
And I'm Dan Gates.
I am the Director of Prevention and Screening Services at the AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod. I'm joined by Dan Gates, our Chief Operating Officer. Thank you to the Board of Selectmen for inviting us here this evening to discuss our services as well as the expansion of our prevention work in Falmouth. Our mission is to save lives through prevention, education, and life-sustaining services that address public health crises to build healthy communities across the Cape and Islands. And that's exactly what we do. We save lives. Excuse me, please don't interrupt me while I'm talking.
You must speak through me, ma'am.
A person dies from opioid overdose every 12.5 minutes. As syringe services have increased on the Cape over the last 2 years, there has been a decrease in overdose deaths Cape-wide. However, in Falmouth, there has been an increase in overdose deaths. And I have statistics to show that. ASGCC was founded in 1983, and we have a 35-year history of serving populations that are targeted, stigmatized, and otherwise neglected. During the height of the AIDS crisis, community residents were ostracized. Compare the treatment of those individuals to the treatment of people today who are struggling with opioid addiction. We work with individuals that are left out of conversations, such as this, and individuals that are not engaged in the healthcare system, including people who use drugs. We believe that every life matters and that every life should be valued. We provide our cost-free services in a non-judgmental manner by meeting participants where they are, loving them for who they are, and helping them when they don't know who to turn to. Providing access to clean syringes is one of the many services we provide. In Falmouth, we will offer HIV, hepatitis C, and STI testing, access to clean syringes, syringe disposal, and syringe retrieval services, overdose prevention education, including free Narcan distribution and training, access to PrEP, a drug taken daily to prevent HIV, also known as pre-exposure prophylaxis. Linkage to care for STI treatment, sexual and reproductive health services, housing and mental health services. And linkage to care for addiction, including referrals and transportation to rehabilitation centers, as well as medication-assisted treatment for opioid addiction. Through this work, our main goal is to stem the acquisition and transmission of HIV, as well as support clients that are HIV positive.
We're getting to the end of your time. Could you talk about the Falmouth facility a little bit more?
Oh,
Sure.
yes.
So just to address a couple of the questions I
Please.
heard coming up. So right now we were looking at a model of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. We've already heard from some in the community that they would want the center closed earlier, so we would be open to closing earlier at 4 o'clock so that it doesn't interfere with any after evening programming.
Is that the programming at the church you're talking about, or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We had heard some questions about that. So what we normally do is we've been going through the process of going through the board process, and then we usually meet with the community before we open and meet community members. I do hear some feedback on that, and I would just say we have a long history in the communities we're in. If anyone speaks to people in Provincetown, we were the first syringe program in the state in Provincetown, and it runs without problems. We had an office in Falmouth for 2 years. We had 0 complaints from neighbors and from town officials. We do understand the concern, and we would like to participate in the community forums to address this. Tonight seemed to get a lot of momentum over the last few days, so we wanted to come and present what information we have so far.
Sure, so there'll be follow-up forums, and you can address questions like, will diabetics and other citizens be allowed to use your services?
I can
if
answer
they
that
are-
right now, yes.
Sure,
Yes.
great.
Anyone who wants access to a clean syringe or any sort of programming, I know this came up earlier in the presentation, but what we do is we meet with people when they come in, and we offer services. We try to connect them to other services. The majority of people who come in are disconnected from services. Their syringes are in the community, and we have staff who are very highly trained who will go out and retrieve those syringes. We have a management structure that is comprised of people usually with master's degrees. We try to have people, I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
Folks, it's hard to hear up here. If you could keep it down so we can hear the info. Sorry about that, sir.
No. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So we come at this from an angle of trying to help the community by starting with the individual.
Okay, questions from the board? Doug?
So how do you, first of all, is it really just an exchange, or do you just hand out the needles?
So no, we do not hand out the needles. So a state requires a 1-to-1 ratio is what they ask for the goal. So that means, and every syringe is tracked. Every syringe that comes in is counted. Every syringe that goes out is counted. We buy them from a source that the state monitors. So it is not just random syringes. The goal is 1-to-1. We run about 20% ahead of that. So that means we take in 20% more syringes than we give out. I can give you more specific numbers if you like, but that has been for 20 plus years with the syringe programming. We are one of the leaders in this. We really are committed to the community, and for this cause, we are not just handing out needles.
Mm-hmm.
Every person who walks in and asks for a syringe sits down with one of our workers and has a one-on-one conversation about how to reduce risk. If there's any support they need, we give out gloves, we give out things to help people when it's cold. We occasionally go a little bit even further out and try to help people to get by from emergency to emergency. And then, as the name obviously suggests, we have 450 clients who are HIV positive who we actively work with. We are working with people in Falmouth now. We have 60 residents in Falmouth that come to Hyannis for these services. They do not come every time for a syringe. The one thing, they will be sharing a syringe. You want to remove barriers. One thing that we didn't have time to go into that I would just like to add is fentanyl is a big part of what is really escalating the crisis. So with fentanyl, you use, if I were addicted to heroin and maybe I were using twice a day, I would need 2 clean syringes. But with fentanyl, it has a much faster, a shorter half-life. So it hits you faster and it leaves your system faster. And that's causing people to use multiple syringes throughout the day. So the need for this is escalating. And we are just responding to the need. I guarantee if anyone in here is against syringe programming, and I know some people are, if I gave you 10 free syringes, I do not think you would go out and use heroin. It is for people who are already addicted who come in for life-saving services.
Any other questions? Megan?
Oh, no, go ahead, Doug. I was
well,
gonna go back. Okay.
So, I think most people, even people here, would probably agree that there's a great need for this. I question, though, the choice of the placement of it, and I wonder how you came to that conclusion.
Folks, needs to be quiet so we can hear.
Because
Thank you.
personally, when I think of it, I would think it'd be sort of up near the hospital, near a medical center, or someplace a little more removed from a residential area. So how did you figure out, was it demographics or is it just the building was available?
Would you like to speak to any of the demographics shifting? Part of it is availability, so you want it to be closer to public transportation. If you make it challenging to get to, people won't come to it. You want to remove those barriers. We were in town hall for 2 years, and that didn't seem like the right place to do it, to make everyone feel comfortable coming in for services.
And also, we provide health services for people who use drugs, so we consider ourselves a health clinic. And it's along the transportation line. We know that people will see us there. We know that there's 60 Falmouth residents who are frequently accessing the Hyannis office that need our help here, and we know that number will expand once we are here as well.
So I have more, but I'll wait.
Just want to give everyone a chance.
Yeah.
Megan?
Well, I was just going to follow up on, I was going to ask about the location issue as well. And if you had an opportunity, I understand that's certainly a well-traveled corridor. We have transportation there. We don't really have public transportation that goes up to the hospital on a regular basis. We just don't have a good public transportation system, period. No, we're getting there. And I know some people are working on it more than others, but were there did you explore any other possible locations, and were there any specific barriers to those locations aside from that issue of transportation?
Yes. One barrier is the availability of a space that is appropriate. So we would not put it on Main Street in a tourist area. Usually people do not.
I do not want to have to recess again. Please be patient. Let him answer the question, and we'll get you a chance to speak.
People
Sir.
at home can only hear through that microphone. So if people are talking on them, everybody who couldn't come tonight who wants to hear this can't hear anything. So we really just need to be aware that there are probably 5 times as many people at home trying to hear this information. Sorry, can you go ahead and say what you're saying?
Yes, so we did look at numerous spaces, and we went for an area that would be appropriate for a health clinic.
Okay, and just to reiterate, the problem with the health area around the hospital is there's no public transportation?
I am not specifically, there's not a particular space that I know of at the hospital that we're referencing.
I was just curious, because I don't know that to be a fact or not, so I just was curious. Okay, can we, just 1 or 2 more questions from the board, and then we'll get to the audience. Doug?
Well, my next one is, when heroin addicts, they get their drugs and they get their needle, as soon as they're ready, and they're not gonna wait and go home. Oftentimes, they're in cars in parking lots or in, wherever. If they're on foot, where are they gonna go? Where in the immediate area would you think that they might use their drugs?
So I want to make sure it's clear we are not a safe injection facility or an overdose prevention site. We do not allow people to inject on our property.
Folks.
People go home, and what's happening, because there aren't any safe injection facilities, people are creating their own safe injection facilities. That's what's happening. That's the reality of what's happening. So people go home. People are not going to be injecting on our property.
But
One more.
the concern I have is, what if...
Folks.
The concern I have is just the people maybe are homeless or are far from home and have traveled maybe from Bourne or Mashpee or who knows where to get to your facility. And if they don't have a place to go, I'm just concerned that it's not a good neighborhood for people to be sneaking behind trees or headstones to be using the drug. So I wonder how you feel like you might address that.
Currently in Barnstable, we work very closely with the Community Impact Unit. We actually have one of our staff members who sits on the Community Impact Unit. We have a great relationship with the Barnstable Police Department, and we're hoping to build a similar relationship with the Falmouth Police Department.
So do you feel like then you'll kind of get to know your clients and keep an eye on them? And if you think they're going to be using in our neighborhood, then you're going to do something? Or?
So people are going back to their homes and using in their homes. We haven't had an issue with...
So if I may just add to this, our experience is that people are often very grateful for the access to clean syringes and to services that we treat everyone who walks through our doors, whether it's a neighbor who's coming in to say hi or someone who's coming in to access services in a non-judgmental way. So people are very invested in not harming that setup. So at our other sites, people often will have conversations about what they should not do, and they know that if they go out and use in our next door neighbor's yard, that is going to create a problem, and we will not continue to be there.
Okay.
All right, let's move on. We're going to, as I said, take about 10 or 15 minutes of questions from the public. I'm going to, there's a limit of 2 minutes per person. The first is John Carcieri here? Sir? Step up, you have 2 minutes, and after that will be Mr. Netto. So
Madam
we
Chair,
can
we
use,
have
make
a-
good,
You want us to run the mic around
Yeah.
and have,
that would be fine. Thank you.
Go. I'll try to read this in 2 minutes.
Don't forget the mic, if you could push that over.
Introduce yourself, please. My name is John Kacheri. Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is John Kacheri. I live at 220 East Falmouth Highway and also own 232 East Falmouth Highway. I'm co-owner of Cape Cod Wholesale Nursery at 6 Martin Road in Wacoit. I have lived in my home in the neighborhood of 178 East Falmouth Highway since 1978. I have been a parishioner at St. Anthony's Church since 1973. I love my community, I love my church, and I'm genuinely concerned about the impact the proposed AIDS support group of Cape Cod office will have on our primarily residential neighborhood. Sadly, I understand there is a need for such a facility in our town, and that our Board of Health has voted to support the need, but without any input from the community at the location. I would submit the following concerns for your consideration. A medical clinic is allowed by right in business zone in Falmouth. Medical clinic is not defined in our zoning bylaws. Are the staff of this office licensed in the medical field? Are there any doctors, nurses, licensed clinical nurse or physician assistants at this office? Should this use be referred to town council and at our building commission to determine if this use meets the requirements for our bylaw? The board must understand that the following activities take place at St. Anthony's directly across the street, less than 1,000 feet away. CCD classes every Monday, 4 to 5:15, with 100 children participating. Bible school study during the summer in July, with 30-plus students meeting daily from 9 to 12. 150 Girl Scouts meet every Thursday there at 5 p.m., ages 5 to 17. 30 Boy Scouts meet every Wednesday at 5. 50 Cub Scouts meet every Monday at 5. Is it wise for this AIDS support group to select this site for their offices? Their clients are at high risk for a variety of communicable diseases. They are at risk for overdosing. That is exactly why they distribute Narcan. Will they come in contact with the young people I have just described and other members of our neighborhood? Definitely. The Board of Health, in November 19th, meeting took this matter up for discussion and voted approval in 7 minutes. There
Sir,
was
your-
no
your-
public discussion.
Your 2 to 3 minutes is almost up.
All right. Our community and specifically our neighborhood did not have an opportunity to express their views on this matter. As our selectmen, you are guardians of our democratic process locally. Are you satisfied with how we as a community have dealt with this problem? Would it be better if this nonprofit was encouraged to be in an area close to our hospital, like Bramble Bush Park, Homeport, or on the campus of Cape Cod Healthcare, or Gosnold? I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kisiari. Neto. Father Avila will be next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Joe Netto, 28 Clark Street, lifelong resident of East Falmouth, lifelong parishioner of St. Anthony's Church, the church that my grandparents in 1926 donated the first pickings of the strawberries to get this church built. This church and this community means a great deal to me. I thank you, Madam Chairman. I realize that this is not a purview of the Board of Selectmen, and I thank the board for giving us all the opportunity to hear what the Board of Health did not let us do. I'm sorry to say that. The goal tonight, I would hope that we would get some open dialogue, and somewhere both sides would reach a compromise. No one who comes to this podium, and John preceded me, no one who's coming to this, and you cannot do this in 2 minutes. It's impossible.
There'll be more opportunities. For
Well,
tonight, it's 2 minutes.
No one coming to this podium is against what you do. We're against the process and how it was done. I am here also to protect the people who can't come to the podium. And as John pointed out, the children of East Falmouth. The children who could be potential victims. That needle that you find on the ground is an object that could contain a communicable disease. Do you want someone's child who found some needles and because of their age didn't understand the importance that was playing with them, that jabbed them? I picked those needles up on my property on Clark Street, and I'm very careful when I have to do that. I would like to go very quickly to the facts that brought us here, and that in my hands and what I've given to the Board of Selectmen is the official agenda item of the Board of Health, plus the minutes from the Board of Health's meeting. I've highlighted. As those of us who live in East Falmouth or the town of Falmouth, I'd like the public to know that this was how the agenda item was presented.
About
6:30.
30 seconds to do
AIDS,
that.
discussion of support groups plans in Falmouth. No address given. But what's more disturbing is when you go to the minutes of the meeting of the Board of Health at 6:32, AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod. These are the minutes. Representative from the AIDS Support Group of Cape Cod appeared to request the support of the proposed new location on East Falmouth Highway. They knew where it was going. Why wasn't 178 East Falmouth Highway put in those minutes so that we knew where the location was? Why wasn't the address and why wasn't 178 East Falmouth Highway put in the agenda item?
Thank you,
The
Mr.
site,
Neto.
I have to finish, the site has general business zoning, which the organization requires. So the Board of Health was totally aware, and that's why we're here tonight. Would
Father Avila.
Would the landlord of this property, Ms. Galt, please think about breaking this lease with these people? This is not the location.
just basically would like to say, first of all, thanks to Joe, and I think he summed it up, the process, that this seemed to happen just overnight. When I open up a paper on Thursday morning, and I find out across the street something that is rather controversial is all of a sudden in our neighborhood. I look at that area, while it is zoned commercially, it's a neighborhood. There are families behind, directly behind that facility. And my concern as pastor at St. Anthony's has been mentioned about the children in the area, children and many people that are in that area, people that visit the church, people who visit the cemetery. And these areas, as well policed as they are, and the police department has done a great job, but they are areas where sometimes we find people and activity that doesn't belong there. Will this increase? I'm concerned it will as a result of this. And even though maybe many of the youth activities don't happen in while the time you're open, what happens when these people leave? Maybe they do go home. Maybe they don't go home. When they're coming out at the end of your day, it's really the beginning of ours. And that's what I'd be most concerned about, is in that evening where there is already activity going on, a lot of youth, and I'm just concerned we're going to have a situation here that we're going to be very sorry about. And so I would not favor this at this place, at this location.
Thank you, Father Ebla. Ma'am, you're not recognized. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in favor? In favor of this location? 1 and 2. Please take the mic with Mr. Johnson's tub. And just your name right here, 2 minutes.
My name's Louisa Gould. I'm at Lieutenant Hauser in Falmouth. So I'm a resident of Falmouth, but I'm also a licensed independent clinical social worker with a specialty in integrated medicine and also providing a specialty in behavioral health pertaining mostly to substance abuse recovery services. I've been doing that for a very long time here on Cape Cod, and I work on a regular basis with the AIDS support group of Cape Cod and Hyannis. And so with that, I want to give this to you, Madam Chairman, and the board, and also to the public, my personal and professional experience with the AIDS support group of Cape Cod and Hyannis. I first want to say that I've had an incredibly good experience with them in Hyannis in terms of the fact that they go into the community, they outreach the community, they pick up discarded needles off of the street. I think you guys need to know that. So even needles that are not... And I'd like to say one thing. I'm really I'm a lifelong resident of Falmouth, and I'm actually really disappointed at how nasty people are being tonight. I really was very...
Okay. Thank you, but we've only got... Ma'am, I'm going to ask the officer to remove you if you don't let people speak. Thank you.
One of
Go
the
right
things,
ahead. You've
one
got
of
a
the things I
minute.
take most pride in about being from Falmouth is the open-mindedness of this community and the open-heartedness of this community. We have an incredibly difficult crisis on our hands right now. What comes with this crisis is communicable disease, okay? And I want to submit this to you. With the communicable disease risks that are correlated with the opioid crisis comes an incredibly hard burden on our healthcare system. What that means is that Cape Cod Healthcare is taking on this burden. It increases costs, it increases stress, and what that does to us is it increases the expenditures of public health care. What that also does is it increases your personal health care premiums. So I just want to put that out there, but I also want to... So I also...
We're going to take another recess if there is another interruption.
So I want to also say that the needle exchange...
You have about 10 seconds.
Because everybody else has been just screaming over me.
Ma'am, don't argue. I'm keeping the time very carefully.
Okay, so the other piece of what I want to say is that the needle exchange piece of what the AIDS support group is very, very, very small. What they have done mostly is done screening, education, prevention, counseling and
Thank you.
and linkage to medical providers in the communities. And I think they do a really good job. And I wish that I would really just ask the board and the public to be open-minded and be educated rather than so shut off. I'm
Thank
really
you.
disappointed about
All
that.
right, next. Are we at 10 minutes, Rob? All right.
Oh my gosh.
Hi. Hello. My name is Katie Romagnoli. I am going to keep it really short and sweet. I think we're all agreed that there's an opioid epidemic happening. It's called an epidemic because it's a widespread community issue. That means that the people that you're calling them and they are already in your neighborhoods. They're already there. They're using drugs there. So do you want to stop an epidemic but not increase the amount of services to reduce harm? I mean, it just seems very obvious to me that if you want to stop an epidemic, you increase the services to reduce harm for everybody. I mean,
Thank you very much. Last speaker.
I'm going to stop.
I wanted the Village Association president.
Fine, but I do want to reiterate what one of the last speakers said is, I'm really getting embarrassed by the way this public is responding to speakers. Please, we're trying to give everyone a chance to speak and be respectful.
Everybody?
It's not your turn.
No, I mean, is everybody
Jay,
said
what I'm
everyone a
asking you to
chance?
do is to be quiet, listen carefully, listen to what other people have to say. We are a fantastic town, but we are a fantastic town because we actually listen to what people say. We don't shrug, we don't scoff we don't interrupt when people are talking. You actually need to start listening because we do care so much about what's going on in this town. And I'm really embarrassed at the number of people who are muttering on their breath when someone says something, who are raising their hand and interrupting. That's not the way dialogue works. We are doing our best. We have lots of people who want to speak, but a lot of people don't want to speak because they're getting attacked by what they say. Please, please, calm, slow down, and let's see how we can work on this together by being respectful about what other people say. It is a very serious problem that people really, really care about, and you all care about your community. And you all really care about your community as much as I do. But please, if we do nothing else, let's show our children that you've talked about how to behave. Because right now, you haven't been showing your children how to behave respectfully and appropriately.
All right, we're going to have our last two speakers. Peter, if you would, Amy, you're going to be last. And right there, help me, Doug, the head of the Village Association.
Mary Ellen?
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Thank you.
I just saw Ben.
I was blanking. Thank you.
Mary Ellen Allward, East Falmouth Village Association President. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room and everyone at home knows that Falmouth is saturated with drug addicts. There's drugs all over our town. We don't have to be told, we know it. I've had numerous phone calls, emails about this situation. We need your services. People just do not want your services in a neighborhood location. I don't know how else to say it. They're desperate individuals. There are going to be problems. We all know that. It's going to be, yes, you're going to work more with our police department because that's going to be another issued area that they're going to have to be at. I just hope that you will hear us when we say we want your services in our town, but we do not want them in a residential neighborhood. Thank you.
Last speaker, Amy, thank you.
Madam Chair and the Board of Selectmen, thank you very much. My name is Amy Leonardi, Goleta Drive. I had submitted some questions to the Board of Selectmen. I've done a lot of research. I have been trying to keep a very much open mind about this. And I agree with what everybody has said. There is a need. One of the things to start with, from the AIDS support group, you did make mention that diabetics could come in there. I did make a phone call to Annette Rockwell from the Office of HIV/AIDS Bureau of Public Health today, And she advised me that actually that was not true, so I would like at some point some clarification on that. In addition, one of my questions was, who are you contracting with to remove the medical waste? How often does that happen? You said that you'll be responsible for potential cleanup. If, for example, a child was to step on a needle outside your facility, just on the off chance, less than 1% chance it happened, who is liable? Is it the town, your group, the state? Who is it? And how did they get treatment? Are the parents responsible for that? What other supplies are you handing out? I know you're handing out Narcan. I know you give free flu vaccines and hepatitis vaccines at your location in Hyannis. Is that open to the general public as well? I want to get them all out. Your funds that are given from the Board of Health approval letter to be utilized, are those for Falmouth only, or will they be going to a general fund with your nonprofit and utilized for the other towns? Can we stipulate that those funds be earmarked for Falmouth only? What other organizations will you be partnering with in town? Who will you be referring to? Will it be Gosnell? Will it be Recovering Champions? Cape Cod Healthcare? Let's see. Have you reached out to Upper Cape Tech regarding the proximity to one of their bus stops? You advertise needle retrieval. Will that information go out to the public? Can any of us call at any time for needle retrieval, beach cleanups, things like that? You currently serve 60 people in Falmouth. How much do you anticipate that increasing by? Also, I would really be interested, according to your tax returns, you've serviced over 100,000 people on Cape Cod and the islands, but 60 are from Falmouth. So I would like to see some data broken down by town on the Cape, because for me to reconcile those numbers, it would seem that maybe Mashpee might have a higher population density. I'm just curious how you arrived at Falmouth as that based on 60 people, and again, how much you anticipating that increasing by. I think that's all my questions
Thank you.
right now.
So those are going to be questions. Those are going to be questions for you to answer at the next public forum. So, and I'm sure Amy would be happy to send those along in writing. That's the end of this agenda item. We're moving to the next item on the agenda. Thank you all. If you want a minute to leave,
My writing is
try to do so quietly. Thank you.
I called the Department of Public Health and I spoke with Annette Rockwell today.
Thank you, guys.
She's with the HIV/AIDS Bureau.
Thank you.
Oh, hi.
I just bought it. She said,
How's she doing?
How it goes.
Oh, good.
Yep. Right. We understand. That's why we do this. Thank you.
Should we take just a 5-minute knock it up so that people can clear out? I don't know if they're gonna hear anything. I'm just thinking.
Okay, we're going to take a 3-minute break so folks can leave if you want to leave. item on the agenda is the presentation and vote to approve the housing production plan. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the board is aware, I know you've been following this.
Ma'am, you gotta go, we're in a meeting, sorry.
Whoa, ma'am, they're on the mic and we're in the middle of a meeting.
Who's responsible?
We have
Send
other
an email.
people's
Thank you.
business.
Mr. Suso.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The housing production plan has been a process that's been worked on. We appreciate our housing coordinator, Carla, taking leadership in terms of working with my colleague, Peter Johnson Staub, Tom Bott, our town planner, the Planning Commission as well, and they've convened, working with a consultant, multiple public meetings soliciting input on the proposed housing production plan. The board will recall that Falmouth's housing production plan had its time had come and gone, and so it was no longer valid. And this plan has been brought to the planning board and has been acted upon by them. If it's appropriate, Madam Chair, I would ask Carla if she might have some summary comments prior to the board considering action.
Ms. Ferroni, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm Carla Froni. I'm the Falmouth Housing Coordinator, and I'm here tonight to ask you to approve our housing production plan. As Mr. Suso has mentioned, this plan has been in the process of being updated since, I think we started back in April, when we got our responses to our RFP. We hired a consultant, Karen Sonneberg, and once she was hired, we went out and met with multitudes of interested people. We met with people who are in the housing communities that would need this type of service. We met with town hall staff and various committees and boards. We held 2 public forums, and lastly, we held a joint meeting with the Planning Board and the Affordable Housing Committee. And at that last meeting, the Planning Board did approve this plan. So this plan provides the town with the opportunity to look at current demographic trends and to revisit our previous housing goals and to revise them based on the shifting housing dynamics. The plan itself, as you know, you've seen, is a hefty document. It's 200 pages long. There's a lot of statistics in there. Some of the interesting points that we see in this plan is the shift of demographics here. And we all know that there's a shortage of housing for young families and also for single-person households. Those 2 groups are really underserved in town. The housing production plan goes about looking at obstacles for those folks and to the obstacles of creating the needed housing for them, but it also comes up with strategies that the town can use to present opportunities to these folks. So we have the summary of housing strategies. We have capacity building strategies such as ongoing community outreach and education, additional support for the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund, formalizing the monitoring of the subsidized housing inventory, and we get into zoning and regulatory strategies. And these are strategies that the Planning Board has been looking at for some time themselves and have started to make some progress in moving forward on accomplishing those strategies. There's also some development strategies and preservation strategies, making suitable public property available for affordable housing, and promoting partnerships with developers. And as we move forward to achieve our goal of,
Excuse me, I'm
bless
sorry.
you, 256 housing units over the next 5 years that are affordable, We need to, I think, work a little bit differently than how we have been working, and we need to reach out more to developers and look at utilizing some of our public land. So at this point, I think I'll open it up for questions if anybody has any questions.
First of all, where can folks who are interested find the housing production plan?
The housing production plan is on the town's website and is on the Affordable Housing Committee's website. Once it's approved, it will be moved to the planning board's website.
Great. Any other questions?
Only questions?
Comments?
Or comment? I mean, it's been a long time coming. It means that we can move ahead in an organized fashion to serve the community the way we have. I see Town Planner Tom Bott is here. Did you want to maybe make a comment with respect to housing and integration with planning? Sure.
Only in Falmouth.
Right.
We don't care about what's going on in Kingston. Nice as it is.
Yes, it is a problem in all the towns, by the way. 40B is a law that was created in 1969 due to a crisis of affordable housing in 1969. The problem has not gone unabated. So in looking at the affordable housing plan, we look at those sort of strategies and things like that. In fact, when I meet with developers, I'm now sharing parts of the plan with them about particular areas that are identified in the plan as appropriate for affordable housing, different housing types to kind of move away from the default of your standard 3-bedroom single-family home. So those are strategies that are in the plan. Those are strategies we're currently developing and sharing with developers. 2 days ago, I had a meeting with a developer and said, I'll send you the particular cogent points from that. So it is a strategy. It's basis to allow us to identify some mechanisms within town, particularly about what is a appropriate and what is a preferable 40B type of development. So when we have folks who come in for LIP applications, we can look to see, does their LIP application comport with the strategies in our affordable housing plan? And if that's the case, then we should support them. And in that support from the town through this strategy, we'll give some support and guidance to the Zoning Board of Appeals, who has the hardest job with this. When you have a 40B and no one likes the density and things like that, if we have a policy in place that says, this is the type of housing we like to see, these are the areas we like to see that, then that renders some comfort and direction to the ZBA when they get into the very difficult situations sometimes of approving something like this that has a good and an application for all of us. So we're very excited about the plan and looking forward to moving on to trying to implement those things, particularly in the zoning strategies. So thank you very much for having me here in Falmouth.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
I would move that we approve or accept the housing production plan.
Second.
All those in favor?
Do we have to make it we have a recommended motion that refers to?
Oh, right.
Specific.
Go for it.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the Town of Falmouth Housing Production Plan dated December 2018, developed and reviewed in accordance with 760 CMR 56.03, 4, and guidelines adopted by the state.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I also want to thank Assistant Town Manager Peter Johnson-Staub, Town Council, everyone that was involved, Town Manager, obviously, in this tremendous effort and accomplishment. Thank you very much.
Town Planner, too.
Absolutely.
It's a very interesting information in there, too, about where we're really at. A lot of people should read it.
And I think we should also thank the Planning Board and the Affordable Housing Committee also for their support and nurturing of this process. In addition to Carla, she took on a big challenge when she came on board here as our housing coordinator, so thank you.
Absolutely. Next on the agenda is vote and appoint committee members to the Route 28 Citizens Advisory Committee. This is probably one of the most challenging appointments that this Board of Selectmen has had. There are 6 at-large members will be appointing. Some of them, if there are abutters, will have a further process designating them as special municipal employees, and we'll see if that's necessary. How would the board like to proceed? Do we want to
Well, I know
Take
in-
it one by one. Megan?
I was just gonna say, no, with this, it's somewhat unwieldy because there's just a lot of people. So I know, in the past, we've kind of just jumped right in because we've already had some conversation. We've interviewed everyone. So jumped in terms of individual board members nominating someone and beginning with that process.
So do you want to do the
Or we
first
can have-
nomination? We'll do one at a time? Does
okay.
someone have a
I have mine
first-
in order
of
preference.
preference? Well, you always get to do your report first, so I'm going to go to Doug Jones.
I'm going to pass.
He's gonna pass.
I'm going to ruin your plan. I'm
No, not
passing.
gonna- Okay, in that case, we'll go, you,
I'll
go
go
ahead.
Doug.
You must have spoken in advance. Go ahead, Doug.
Oh, well, okay, so I'm going to first start out by recommending James Marshall because I feel like he really started this whole process. And even though he's in a butter, I feel like he'd be the most
I would second that.
engaged.
Okay, all those in favor of Mr. Marshall? Aye. Unanimous? Congratulations, Mr. Marshall. Sam?
Should we do the butters first?
Yeah, you can pick
Okay,
one name.
All right. I'm going to nominate Rachel Howard for two reasons. She's in a butter, but she also has children, and her husband is a biker. So I see in her a combination of somebody that recognizes three needs that need to be addressed by this committee. So that's my recommendation.
I'm going to second that. All those in favor of Rachel Howard?
Aye.
Aye. So that's 1, 2, 3. And is that 2 against?
Nothing
so three to-
personal
three
at
to
all.
two.
It's a good choice.
3 to 2. Okay, then 3 to 2 is sufficient, Frank, right? It is, okay. Megan?
I think I would start by nominating Bev Williams, who isn't a butter. I think she brings a long-standing knowledge of that area for several generations through her parents living in that area as well.
I would second that, but I actually, I'm probably going to vote against it after I second it because I really felt that 2 abutters is about the right number
thought that's what
to
we had
have on a
discussed.
9-person committee. And I think to have a third of the committee be abutters, I think just makes it a little bit tough to really serve the purposes as well. But she was a choice of mine also.
All right, so any more discussion before we take a vote on Beverly Williams? Okay, all those in favor of Beverly Williams?
Aye.
Not personal,
Okay.
but I agree
We're
with
going
the
with
two
the-
butter
with the
thing.
abutter.
I guess they beat me to it, the abutters.
Two
so-
abutters, okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. So we have, the next nomination will be mine. I'm going to nominate Greg Berkeley, who had the tremendous experience on road work and process, and I think is just, really uniquely qualified in terms of being as an appointed member of the committee, having not only experience that a lot of the town will have, but a varied experience like from a different perspective.
Second?
Yep.
I agree.
Second.
He had my second number 2 choice here, and I definitely agree. We'd be crazy if we didn't grab him.
All those in favor of Greg Berkeley?
Aye.
I'm going to skip you.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I would just like to take advantage of Jane Perry's experience in transportation in this town, and I would nominate that Jane Perry be appointed.
Is there a second before a discussion? I'll second for discussion purpose.
I'll second.
Okay.
You don't have to force yourself.
Sam's just, okay. I would also not endorse Jane Perry. She has a lot of experience, and I think that I know with her RTA experience, there was a lot of difficulty in actually attending meetings, but I think that she's going to be a great resource, especially with ADA. She's somewhat of an expert at that. I don't think she needs to be on the committee to have that input, so I'm not going to vote for her. Any other comments on Jane? Sam?
I would be willing to defer to another person, basically, because we do have a representative from the Disabilities Commission on the committee already by virtue of their recommendation. I think Jane is an excellent resource. I've worked with her myself, and I expect that she will be participating in this as an attendee of the meetings.
All right, so there's a nomination and a second on Jane Perry. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's one, doesn't carry. The next, we've got, let's see, so we've got James Marshall, Greg Berkeley, Rachel Howard. So three, we've got three more to go.
Lamp
Doug?
again?
Oh,
My
go ahead.
next pick would be Allison Leshen. I think that she is representative of a pretty even-minded, honest, fair person. I've served with her on Falmouth Water Stewards and at other events, and I think she's just a very even, fair person. I don't think that she would be overly zealous on either way and try to, she's a smart person. I think she'd do a good job of realistic compromise, which at the first Bikeways Committee, where Mr. Marshall and some other abutters attended, they all were pretty quickly come to a consensus about, a compromise was certainly possible, so I was encouraged at the beginning, so.
I would second that nomination. I think she is going to get someone who will get buy-in from the entire committee for whatever plan they come into, and I
Right.
think that's going to be essential.
I'm not in favor of Allison just because I think it would be great if she was the Bikeway nominee. I think that she's really taken a leadership role in this committee. I certainly think everything she does is, as you say, well-researched, and she puts a lot of energy and accuracy into everything she does. I just think that it's such a hard choice with so many folks that we have, since we already have Bikeway representation, and since I know that Allison is going to be very active at the meetings anyway, I'm just afraid that we're losing other representation. So that's the only reason I would vote against Allison. Any comment, Megan?
I share that, except that then I'm noticing what that leaves us is with one woman out of a group of six, and not that everything has to be equal, but we have one sort of female voice out of a group of six, because it doesn't leave, because everybody didn't vote for Bev Williams, or else we would have had it more balanced.
Well, we're not through, because I was going to nominate
All right, I just want
Mary
people to-
Berry, and you haven't given me a chance.
I just want people to keep in mind, I just think
Madam
it's nice to have
Sure.
some balance of just voices. We're talking about having abutters, non-abutters, cyclists, so just something to keep in mind, although I do note, I guess there'll be someone from one of the other, I think all the appointments from the committees are.
No,
Charlotte.
Charlotte
Charlotte
Harris.
Harris.
Charlotte
Okay.
can certainly carry the female position
Sounds
very.
Especially when it's involving designing something. I mean, gotta have some ladies here.
He's going
All right,
down.
we're gonna gavel this meeting if we, so, where are we here?
We just have to vote on.
Allison.
Okay, so
Allison.
we've got a second already? Oh, I did. Okay, so all those in favor of Allison?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, carries. Congratulations, Allison.
Do I get a chance?
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Mary Berry. She's had the municipal development experience in other states. She's highly organized. I've seen her in various community events. She's very objective, and I think she's really got this community's interest at heart in a balanced kind of way.
Second?
Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
So that's how many?
Three.
1, 2, 3. Congratulations, Mary Barry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I'd like
Megan.
to also, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
Oh, wait, hold on. Turns. So,
Well,
you
I
did the
had
last.
two, I'd love to take another
You
one.
did
Oh,
that-
I'll,
it's your
yeah,
turn
I'm
unless
happy
you
to.
wanna
I'm
give it
torn
me. Okay.
between, there's just a lot of choices. And so we only have one, we have a final pick, is that what we have here?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so, I think to have, someone with sort of a larger kind of community view and a view of, kind of the practicalities of transportation and things like that, I think I might, nominate, John Sylvia Senior.
Second.
I think he had a good kind of overview of the town.
Took my nominee away.
And just someone who's not in a butter, but has kind of a good connection to the community, and I think somebody who's is fair-minded and will hear people out.
Any more comments on Mr. Sylvia?
Nope, I think he'll do fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, so that is our committee. It is James Marshall, Allison Leshen, John Sylvia Senior, Greg Berkeley, Rachel Howard, Mary Barry. Congratulations, thank you so much for your interest, very much appreciate stepping up. Thank you very much.
And I hope the rest of the group will continue to participate with good ideas,
Absolutely.
especially Michael Paven with the idea about the utilities being buried underground.
Very popular. I think it'll be popular with Charlotte as well. So the next item on the agenda is to vote to designate the members of the Route 28 Citizens Advisory Committee as special municipal employees.
I vote that we designate the members of the Route 28 Citizens Advisory Committee as special municipal employees.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have a consider and vote on exemptions from conflict of interest law for certain members, abutters of the Route 28 Citizens Advisory Committee. That would be James Marshall and Rachel Howard.
So moved.
And I think we do it individually.
Oh, we have to do them individually?
Yes.
Okay.
So your motion was with respect to Mr. Marshall?
Sure.
I
Is
have
there a
great.
second?
Second, and I would just comment that I thought that certainly he cares a lot about what's happening in the area, but I really do think that the way he presented his point of view, that he was able to distance his personal, the concerns about his personal property from the whole issue. So I think it is appropriate to exempt him.
And he's a good representative for the Village Association as well.
Yep.
And just,
I've worked with Jim in scouting. I've had both of his sons come through my scout troop, and he's been a very positive, objective, mature kind of youth leader, and so I really support that.
And I think it's great that he really wants to see the roadway improved. He doesn't want to just try to kill the project because it might bother his neighborhood, and that's been his position from the beginning, so.
Megan?
just along the same lines, in the bikeways meeting that we had with individuals from the community, you know, he's been someone who's been an advocate around these issues from the beginning, but he's very willing to hear people. He's very willing to be solution-oriented. I think that he's able to separate himself from the fact that his home is there. I think, as he noted, he's not going anywhere. It was his grandparents' home, and whatever the value is, he's leaving to his kids, whatever it might be, so.
You know, when I first saw his sign up there, I stopped and I said, "You think that's accurate?" And he says, "Pretty sure it is." And we stood out there and marched it off, and I kind of agreed with him with his accuracy. And I said, "Well, what if it was shortened up a little bit? What if it was only, to here?" He says, "Well, we could probably live with that," So, I mean, right away, he was ready to, anything to make a better
Yeah, no, I
situation.
think he was really about the visibility of the issue, not only for himself, but for a lot of people,
Right.
and that was very important. So there's a motion and a second with respect to Mr. Marshall. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, same issue with Rachel Howard.
Yes. Well, I would move that we exempt her from the exclusion of the butter.
I'll second.
I think that, again, she is a young person, the kind of people we're trying to hang on to in town. She has a child. Her husband she says, actually bicycles to work, so she really combines the interest of several different parties. And the fact that she has a young perspective and is thinking about what Falmouth might be. But I am very much worried about calming the traffic coming through that section of town. And I hope that, her protection of her children, while it may be in her best interest, is, a voice that we want to see on this
Well,
committee.
and she talked about children generally, and where, interaction with the school, and that being a common issue to a lot of people that she happens to have some individual expertise in. Megan?
And just, I just want to note that I think the concerns she raises aren't about the things we commonly hear from the concern we commonly have about abutters, about how does it affect property value. She's talking about really the experience of living where she lives, being able to walk to school, being able to walk to the beaches. So I don't think it's the common concern that we hear and that we have to look at, that abutters are going to be sort of self-interested in terms of how it impacts their financial interests or their property interests. She really raises some other concerns.
Yes, good points.
So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have the Board of Selectmen Chair summary of the town manager evaluation. With the,
Conflict of interest.
The conflict.
right.
Conflict, okay.
Okay, so do we need to do anything else to do that? Thank you.
And just for the folks who were voted tonight, can town manager or assistant town manager speak to what they should expect next? Will they get a letter from the town, and then, just so that if people haven't served on committees before?
We'll be contacting them and advising suggested initial meeting date in January.
So I would move that we authorize the chairman of the board to sign the letter exempting those two individuals from the conflict of interest law when the letter is prepared.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Great,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, so the process for town manager evaluation has changed this year based upon certain court cases. So it took a while for town council to make that analysis and give new directions. What I've done is, I've previously given the copy to the town manager, and if you could acknowledge receipt, Mr. Suso?
Yes, thank you.
And the way I've compiled this, these are, for the first time, handing these around, which is the new process. This is a compilation, and the way I did this, and this process, I would suggest, needs further improvement. Because we wanted to make sure we did this by year end, and yet it was very late in getting this, there were varying ways that I got the information. Some of it was nicely typed that I could cut and paste. A lot of it was, there were just, it was a little unwieldy to put together. So I'll just kind of go through piece by piece as best I can. The rating scale goes from 0 to 4. 4 is always exceeds expectations. 3 is often exceeds. 2 is regularly meets. 1 is often meets expectations. So I think it's important for the public to understand that if you get a 1, it means you often meet expectations. I mean, a 1 is pretty good. I mean, it's so the scale
It's a strange
is
scale.
a little tilted toward the high, like the octaves go really high. And then 0 is fails to meet expectations. So those are the numbers. There were 6 goals that were presented to review performance. The first one was implementation of the community development group that the Board of Selectmen has talked so much about, a need to coordinate town departments, associated boards and committees to better manage the town's changing development, housing needs, streamline permitting, make electronic permitting where possible. That was one goal, and that is part of the review that you'll hear more later. I do want to make note that every one of these goals, we could have said it's either complete, in progress, or not undertaken, and they're all in progress. So that's a little bit difficult in terms of the rating. I think maybe the board should consider looking at pieces of the goals so we can see what's actually accomplished based upon a timeline, and maybe see if the town manager might appreciate or like that idea. The second goal is formal town employee performance evaluation. That's in progress. The third goal is to improve staff organization and facilities, to identify opportunities for better community service and quality, efficiency, develop a master organization and facilities plan. So kind of take the capital plan and make it work, make it a little more user-friendly. That was the third goal. The fourth is to analyze and evaluate fire department staffing requirements for emergency response purposes. Look at the existing pattern of service demands. The study that apparently is available needs to be updated. It's quite old. The next goal, number 5, is to work with the Water Quality Management Committee to develop a cost-effective approach to treat and dispose of Falmouth's wastewater, which, and this is the trick, supports growth in business and housing opportunities and assures long-term sustainability. And number 6, the last goal that we were reviewing, is to coordinate staff to manage the town's resiliency to coastal storms and sea level rise. So those are the 6 goals we are reviewing. What I did was we then have to vote on particular elements of those performance standards, and we do it by those numbers from 0 to 4. The first item is integrity. Mr. Suso was rated 2.4. The next item is teamwork, He was rated 3.6. The next item is interpersonal skills. He was rated 2.6. The next category is core responsibilities for planning. He was rated 1.8. For written and oral communication, he was rated 2. For job skills and knowledge, he was rated 3. For problem solving and decision making, he was rated 2.2. For initiative, he was rated 2.3. The next category is leadership and management of the town's vision. For management effectiveness, he was rated 2.4. For administration, 2.6. For knowledge, 2.6. And for organizational relationships, 2.3. Leadership qualities, 2.9. Organization, 2.6. Planning, 2.8. And then the final element is that there is an opportunity for the board as reviewers to comment on each of those sub-items. Some folks comment on some items. Most everyone does not comment on all of the items, and some folks write a summary. And so what I did for the balance of the compilation is I cut and paste if there was a lot of handwriting, and try to be, as specific and accurate as I could, to, for each person. And I guess what I'd like to do is hand it over to the board for your summary comments, and just, you can kind of make mention, read the whole thing, read as much as you want, make an independent comment. Mr. Jones, do you want to start?
I guess I'm just trying to make sure I understand the process as to what actually becomes part of his performance summary. Is it what we discuss? Is it what we've typed up? Is it what we've?
This is a public record, and what we're discussing is there's a public record of that as well.
Okay.
And that's all that is a public record. There's nothing else that's part of the review process that will be a public record.
Okay. I don't think it's necessary for me to read the entire paragraph that I wrote. I wouldn't want to set that as what we're going to do. I think that Julian has done a very good job in dealing with the multiple and complex issues the town has to deal with. I think there's some points of emphasis that came up in the review as to some suggestions that I know that I've made that where we can do better, because I think everyone can do better, and to have a performance review that doesn't give some suggestions is not useful at all. And one of the things that I've really been impressed with his willingness and ability to delegate responsibility, I think, to having the assistant manager we have, but also the department heads, that he really gives them a lot of responsibility and takes their advice as useful and as informative.
I'll go next. One of the things that's foundational to every step the town takes is the finances, and Julian has just been an absolute maestro of that from the beginning, along with Finance Director Jennifer Petit, has achieved a AAA bond rating and has made the town's finances every year more understandable, more goal-focused, and in order to, as much as we can, keep moving projects without raising taxes, that's absolutely fundamental. And I think that every single person in town who is a taxpayer should think about the fact that Mr. Suso is largely responsible for looking at the bottom line and doing things as economically as possible in keeping the money in their wallet as opposed to in the town's coffers as much as is practical. I think the projects that we have going forward mean those days may be numbered. Things do get more expensive. There are bigger projects. There are infrastructure needs. So, I think that I have every confidence that he will do that as long as possible.
And just since you raised
Sure.
that point, I will respond to one of the other criticisms I did have in that is I sometimes think that Mr. Suso errs too much on the fiscal conservative, where there might be some solutions that are out there that might be more expensive but might actually serve a town-wide community a little bit better. And I think it's great that he's so concerned with the maintaining that budget, but I think there are times that we need to be open-minded to considering maybe this is the time that we actually put a few more dollars towards this project, because we can get, the advantage we can get by doing that would be useful. And so I just want to make sure that that is included in a sentiment also. And it may be that you and I have differing views on that. It may be that most of the town feels, thank goodness our taxes aren't going up. But I do think there are times we say, you know, we just might need to spend the money there.
And it's coming,
Right.
absolutely. And then just in terms of things to improve, the board has made clear over the last 2 years in its strategic planning that the town is getting so big, there's so much money involved. Just for regular community responsiveness, customer service areas, I think we have to look at maybe putting more focus on coordinating our communications so that all of our projects get developed in an even-handed way, so that if folks have questions, they, we can track the responses, because that may be of more interest to other folks. So that would be the area that I would look for, us all to improve in that communication piece. Megan?
Yeah, I would just say, just to echo some of the other comments, I mean, I think if we look at the last few years, we've had really tremendous community programs, projects that this town has engaged in that have gone off, knock on wood, because we have the senior center coming along, but have gone off remarkably well. And I think that that's in no small part to the fact that Julian really kind of keeps his finger on those projects and makes sure that we're moving along and coming, to have projects over $40 million come in on budget and on time is something that just, doesn't happen regularly, particularly in municipalities. And so I think, there's a lot of credit to be given there for pushing those projects through, for continuing to push on projects like the senior center that have taken over a decade to get going. And we're finally, we've broken ground and moving forward with that. I would say that, the one critique I had actually comes with, there's a positive and a negative to both sides of it, which is that I think, in the positive, Julian isn't afraid to sort of take positions or make a hard decision, and that can be something that is very difficult to do, particularly in a small community, because you hear from it directly, you hear from people, and sometimes you have to take whatever position you think is right, and you hear from the public as to whether or not they agree with it, and I don't think Julian's afraid to do that. That's a good manager has to make decisions. They can't make everyone happy all of the time. So I think he's really willing to put himself out there and push for the things that he thinks will make for better, better governance and better development for the community. And I think the flip side of that is sometimes there could be maybe an improvement in some of those modes of communication, or maybe opening up more opportunities for some dialogue. And that's just something that, again, this board, we experienced it tonight. Board of Health is experiencing some of that tonight. I mean, there's always opportunity for more dialogue. Sometimes what I think a town manager or a select person or member of any committee thinks is not going to be get a lot of community pushback does when it's put out there. So I think just creating that opportunity to look ahead and always have, err on the side of more community input and conversation, or conversation with stakeholders, is one thing I think that would help move the projects along, and sometimes have stymied some of the projects that he's put forward that I think have a lot of merit, and I hope that the town reviews again. And I think that's probably it, yeah.
Sam?
Yes. First of all, coming out of a management background and been studied it academically, I think the important thing about a manager at Julian's level is an executive managers is you're usually leveraging other managers. You're a manager of managers. And so one of the things that stood out in my mind as far as Julian's review is that he's recruited, staffed, and integrated some really strong new positions: the assistant town manager, the town planner, the IT director, Board of Health agent, housing coordinator, assistant conservation agent, and the executive administrative assistant that we've added to our staff at the town manager's office. So I think that says something. We're going to get, even with his leadership, and I would say by expecting them setting individual goals and coordinating those with Julian, the town manager, then we can expect some real productivity as a result of those decisions. And I really applaud him for his decision-making there. and the process that he's gone through to actually bring them in and make them part of the team, because that takes education and indoctrination. That's what, to me, that's the real power that a manager has to help the organization move forward in a quality and effective way. One of the things I've always impressed me is Julian's ability to kind of keep track of all the details and to be ready to report them to us, and I think he does a good job of keeping us informed. The one thing I would say is that the goals that we've agreed to with Julian are process goals, and I would hope that in the future that what we can see is a breakdown of those into tangible or observable points, milestones is probably the right word for it, where we can actually evaluate progress based on those. But I really see that as whoever the person is that's being evaluated needs to actually produce that as part of coming up with those goals, so that there is a way of measuring progress in achieving those process kinds of objectives or goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug?
So, last year, when we did this form, I was kind of complaining about the form itself, and this year it's a little better, but it's still kind of just a form, and it's hard to really capture what Mr. Suso does. So I went through and I checked off all the boxes, and I filled it out as best I could, and I did my comments at the end. But when I really just look at what I'm actually voting on, it's hard to really reflect what the man does. It doesn't say how did he do on hiring the new planner, and how did he do, all these hires. It's taken up a lot of his time, and it's hurting him here as far as, if I fill out the form correctly. So I hope that next year, before, maybe a couple months before, we can have another little retreat, and we can just focus on this and come up with something.
I'm hearing a volunteer in charge of that.
Well, I'll take a shot at it.
I agree. I don't think it's
But-
particularly, I think it could be much more helpful
it's hard
as
to
a
work
review.
with.
It's hard to work with, and as a result, like I said, I'm being kind of critical with my review, because so many of these things are of ongoing nature, and like Sam said, it's hard to delineate exactly where we're at in some of them. So I think the form itself kind of hurts Mr. Suso. I certainly appreciate him as town manager, and I think he's doing a good job. I just, wish that this was more relative to what he's actually doing.
And it is a work in progress. I want to say that when that has come up, Mr. Suso has done a good job at trying to address that. I just think we need to further that.
Right.
So I appreciate that.
Okay.
Any response, or I don't, just
thank you.
thanks for that.
Thank
Great.
all the members of the board for your thoughtful comments and the time and really the information that you're passing along. It's appreciated very much, and an important part of my being a responsive town manager, so I take it very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We next have very, very, very short individual selectmen reports.
Well, I did about 16 things this week.
You're only
Tell
going
me
to
all
tell
about
us
it.
one.
Oh, well, I went to the Steamship Authority, the report, HMS report was delivered today at the high school. Sam was there. And
Their
had-
operations, I was there,
Yeah, and it was interesting. It's an ongoing process. It was interesting to see the response from the governors. They were all a little reticent, saying some of the report I liked and some I didn't like. So it's unusual for them to be, put under a microscope. They're not used to it, and I think it was a good exercise. I hope they respond to it with some new initiatives. It was interesting. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Just ditto with Doug's comments about the meeting for the Steamship Authority. One of the things I went to, and I do want to mention, because it kind of resonates with what we were just talking about on the NITO Exchange Aid Support Group, is I went to the Cape Cod Selectmen and Councilors Association meeting on Friday. Julian was there also. And Jamie Binyenda, I think is his name, he's a Cape Cod investigator for the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission for the state, gave a presentation on alcoholism, and kind of a sobering reminder that there are more people who are alcoholics on Cape Cod than there are when you combine all the other addictive drugs and substances, something we shouldn't overlook. And the one thing I want to mention is that what he pointed out, that that research has shown is that the earlier you can school people not to try these drugs, that means in those teenage years, you're in that age when your mind is, they call it neuroplasticity, but is so willing to grasp onto the first thing that maybe creates euphoria or deadens pain, but it just imprints itself so much more strongly. So the importance of doing intervention education at an early age is what he's cited as probably the area where we could make the most improvement, or at least help people avoid the unfortunate burden of alcoholism. But I just mentioned that because I thought it was something we should look at, and it is one of the biggest problems that Cape Cod has. About 8% of the population actually are alcoholics, excuse me.
8%, that's just the ones who admit it.
Right. Megan?
No, I just hope, I'm just inspired after tonight's conversation to remember that this is, for many people, really a season of compassion and a season of being open to thinking of the needs and the trials and tribulations of others. I hope that folks continue to go forward with that in mind. We can love our community and we can really care about individuals. We can dislike some of the things associated with their behaviors, but you know, some of the comments tonight were, you know, not beyond community concern and moving into really just ripping apart individuals who are already struggling. These are, you know, members of our community. So I just hope that we remember that and can have a civil conversation about our concerns and worries without really demonizing people. We've done this throughout history with just about every, you know, difference that somebody has, and I hope that we recognize that we can have productive conversation without making people who are addicted to opioids or other substances or struggling with communicable diseases or their family members out to be something that's stigmatized. It's why we have a problem with this epidemic to begin with, because people can't come forward and just, you know, express that they're struggling. So
I could not say it better. I just want to end on my incredible appreciation and gratitude for this board and the important issues that come before us, our willingness to disagree, to voice our concerns respectfully, our ability to put our chins out and take the hard knocks, because we all, you know, one thing we do have in common to a very serious degree is the service to the community is very important, and it's so important for folks to get an opportunity to be listened to, for folks to have opportunities to, you know, learn things. And I know that each and every one of us, I'm just proud to serve with all of you and all that you do behind the scenes, you know, the tremendous amount of work, you know, just in individual issues every single week. And the only complaints are, you know, how can we fit another meeting in? Can we have another joint meeting? You know, and it really amazes me with everything that we juggle. And, you know, certainly it's in no small part to the, you know, the great staff, of course, here at the table, audience earlier in the meeting, and just at Town Hall, that there's so many people who just want to make things better. And you can disagree, and that's important, because if you don't question, then things never change. So I'm just very grateful for all of you this holiday season. Doug?
Just to report that I had a wonderful time at the Falmouth Service Center on Friday, being a part of their fashion show. And just to reiterate what Ms. English Braga said, is there are a number of places out there that are looking for help, and this is the time to do it. It's the time of the year to be able to offer your help in any way you can, and it's amazing how good it feels.
Wednesday, we'll stack the toys up.
I have a request for an agenda item. I want us to deal with the Steamship Authority Falmouth Board representative. I don't want to make this look like the process is a political cronyism type of manipulation. I think we need to deal with the applicant. We need to discuss it as an open deliberation and make a decision based on it. But just simply prolonging it indefinitely when the person isn't even appointed to the position is not the right way to do business. And I don't want this board to have that kind of image. So it's beginning to look like political cronyism if we don't deal with it directly, and I think we should get it on our next agenda.
What I think since we're going into the new year, I think we'll re-advertise, and then we'll just put it on the agenda, no matter how many applicants we have. It might be 2, it might be 3, and
We've already done that.
it's not
and
on
there
our
was a
agenda to
deadline.
discuss, Sam. It's not on our agenda today.
No,
That's
I'm
my
I
plan.
told you I'm requesting the agenda item, that's it.
And I answered. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. It was my pleasure to attend and provide a few comments at the new senior center groundbreaking ceremony this past Thursday afternoon. I know it's already been referred to, and I'd given the selectmen members a copy of my remarks. I also attended the Chamber of Commerce Business After Hours event on Wednesday evening at the Marine Biology Laboratory Swope Hall. It was well attended, provided an opportunity to meet the recently arrived new MBL president, Dr. Patel. And I want to confirm that the board's next business meeting will be Monday, January 7th. And as per usual, this first meeting of the calendar year will involve the formal presentation of the proposed fiscal year appropriations budget. And as per usual, I will have my budget message and budget recommendations to members of the board before the Christmas holiday. And I look forward to
Oh,
that.
thank you.
Just what I asked for.
Exactly.
In case you need some additional companion reading, as the board, I know, is well aware, that is required to be to you by January 1 each year. So I am putting the finishing touches on that now for the board's careful review.
We'll look forward to that under the tree.
Yes, thank you. I also just wanted to make a comment to let the board know, because we've had a couple of references to transportation-related issues off and on at times. And wanted to, I'm not certain that the public is aware, but I know the board is, that several years ago, we began a monthly process of an internal staff development review. It involves all the staff members that are involved in the routine permitting and review process for any proposed developments in the town of Falmouth. My colleague Peter Johnson Staub, at my request, convenes those meetings. I sit in on as many as I possibly can attend. But what is key about that is we have all of the appropriate department heads and staff members that are involved in that to collaborate and help ensure that we're not spinning our wheels and duplicating effort out of respect for developers and the development process in our community. I also wanted to note that as part of that process, we also focus on transportation and traffic issues as they relate to individual proposed developments. So I want to underscore the fact that transportation and traffic and the internal review is taken very seriously. We also involve, even though there isn't necessarily always a direct permit, our colleagues in Public Works, whether it be Deputy Public Works Director Peter McConerty or Town Engineer Jim McLaughlin, or if the need arises, Public Works Director Ray Jack, because they have a key involvement and key information and expertise professionally they bring to bear on the traffic and transportation process, among other important topics. So that is an important a reminder that I wanted to give, that is in furtherance of this whole community development concept and this community development group of collaborative entities, and we're very pleased to have a new zoning administrator join us recently that is a key player in that entire process, Noreen Stockman, as well. And she will begin her work full-time beginning in the month of January, working part-time through this month. And we appreciate Sari Boudreau's continued assistance through that transition. So I wanted to remind of that. And lastly, I wanted to offer a belated Happy Hanukkah and a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to come to all within the town and certainly the Board of Selectmen. And thank you for a most productive year.
Thank you very much.
Report.
Peter?
Two brief things. First, the skate park has been bid yet again. This is our third attempt, and the change in the specification this time was to allow a very long timeline for completion of the projects in the hope that that will bring the bid pricing down. So we, typical for this project would be 6 to 9 months. We're going 18 months. The construction climate has, been so competitive that we were not successful in bringing the bid in under budget the first 2 times. So that's out to bid. We're fingers crossed on that. And then I just want to mention that Bruce McGardo brought to our attention that Minot Beach continues to be eroded pretty significantly. Each year seems to be worse than the one before. We had a very prompt interdepartmental response to that, and we do have a permit in place that will allow for some, I'm going to use non-technical terms in order to avoid using a technical term incorrectly. We're going to be able to put some sand on the parking lot that is going to help to shore up the erosion that will come from the next few storms. And there's more to come, so I didn't want to get into the details, but just to let you know that we are aware of it and very pleased that DPW, MES, Conservation, Beach, everyone really jumped to it to move that quickly.
Thank you. Great. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Yes. A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You're not getting us this time.
Welcome to the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce. The Falmouth Chamber is dedicated to working on behalf of our members to make Falmouth a better place to live, work, and conduct business. We are committed to developing the economic, cultural, educational, and civic interests of our community and welcome the support from all organizations to achieve our combined goals. Whether you call Falmouth home, are a summer resident, or a visitor, we hope you take advantage of all that the Chamber has to offer.
Carlson Printing for all your printing needs. 508-548-7303 or toll free at 1-800-696-7303. Our email address is carlsonprinting@aol.com. Carlson Printing for all your printing needs.
Hosting services for fctv.org are provided by Meganet Communications. Meganet offers a wide array of internet services including Mega Backup Cloud Service, server colocation, T1, fiber, Metro Ethernet, as well as telephone services such as hosted PBX and digital voice. Their #1 goal is to keep your communications network up and running and allow you to focus on growing your business. 877-634-26.